Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to this segment of Khoj Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day. Our recitation for today is Sri Rag Mahalla Panjwa, Sanch Har Dhan Puj Satgur, Chod Sagal Vekar, Jin Tu Saj Savarya, Har Simar, Hoye Udhar, जप मन नाम एक अपार, प्राण मन तन जिन्हें दिया, हृदय का आधार रहाओ, काम क्रोध अहंकार माते, व्याप्या संसार, पौ संत सरणी, लाग चरणी, मिटे दुख अंधार, सत संतोख दया कमावै, एहो करनी सार, आप छोड़ सब होए रेणा, जिस दे प्रभ निरंकार, जो दिसै सो सगल तू है, पसरिया पासार, कहो नानक गुर भरम काटिया, सगल ब्रह्म विचार। संच हर तन पूज सतगुर, छोड़ सगल विकार, जिन तू साज सवारिया, हर सिमर होए उधार। So to acquire the qualities of the Har, the self within, who is the source of all excellences, devote yourself to the true enlightener, the Satgur. And what will the Satgur do? The Satgur will free you from sensory addictions, and we'll see in a moment what sensory addictions or vikar really means. The idea here is that remembrance of the Har will elevate your consciousness. And so therefore the invocation to the mind is gain that knowledge and gain that insight into the infinite one. Japa man naam ek apar. However, the state of the world is such that we act out of the intoxication of pride, namely self-conceit. Kam, Krodh, Ahankar, Mate, intoxicated, Vyapya Sansar, is the world engaged in. And so the world is essentially laden with desire and antagonism and conflict. That is essentially what is being said here. So therefore, Pau Sant Sarni, Lag Charni, Mite Dukh Andhar. So this state of antagonism, conflict, desire, really stems from ignorance, spiritual ignorance, ignorance of one's true identity. So the Guru is saying, seek refuge with the enlightened ones so that you can learn from them, illuminate your consciousness, so to speak. And then what happens? Sat santokh daya kamave. Be rewarded with truth, contentment, and compassion, underlying essential qualities that are required, in fact, that form the foundation of this new consciousness that is being developed. And what does that consciousness do? It views the world differently. It sees the entire expanse as the expression of the one. Jo dise so sagal tu hai, pasrya pasar. So we find in this passage interesting insights again. The first requirement on this path is a nullification, vikar chadne, nullification of sensory addictions, which we commonly translate as sensual indulgence or gratification, but the term, which comes from vikalpa, means something more. It actually includes getting over or transcending or overcoming or deconditioning the mind from the narrative that it has spun around itself. These are all the stories and the concepts. In a word, all the conditioning that our mind is subjected to and that we come to believe, we come to attach ourselves. We're looking at the world through a particular lens. So Guruji here is saying what we need is a progressive deconditioning from vikar. In other words, a deconstruction of the way your thought process is now and taking a fresh look at the world. So you need to reorient the mind. The mind is naturally outward leaning, attached to the senses because it perceives the world primarily through its senses. So what the Guru is saying that is not enough because that is misleading. What you need to do is to reorient your mind so that you move inward into a space where the senses, the contradiction of the senses, are overcome by the light of knowledge of the self, where all apparent contradictions dissolve. In other words, you're able to see the world from another capacity, and let's say we'll call it the intuitive faculty. And the Satgur in all of this is an absolute and necessary condition for this process. Why? Because the Satgur is just not an ordinary teacher. They are better known as acharyas in the Indian tradition. But the Satguru has a different nuanced meaning that it's very important to capture. It's really the principle of knowledge, and its methodology is somewhat paradoxical. It uses metaphor, poetry, koans to go beyond all methods. It kind of is a tool to break the conditioning of the mind. So without the Satgur, without this principle, the mind cannot get to the first milestone in the journey, which is recognizing the self within. And once that happens, the critical point here is that is not it. With a new and unified consciousness, a Sikh is expected to serve humanity. Aap chhod sab hoye rena, jis de prabh nirankar. So you have to really be in the service of humanity, but it has to come from a unified consciousness. So you have to fix the way you look at the world first, take your petty little ego out of it, and get a broader perspective, and that is how to serve humanity. Until the next time, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.